Wordless 30. Nauseate. Caused to become sick, fill with disgust. The foul smells began to nauseate him. Nautical. Pertaining to ships or navigation. The Maritime Museum contains many models of clipper ships, logbooks, anchors and many other items of a nautical nature. Navigable. Wide and deep enough to allow ships to pass through, able to be steered. So much sand had built up at the bottom of the canal that the waterway was barely navigable. Nebulous. Vague, hazy, cloudy. After 20 years, she had only a nebulous memory of her grandmother's face. Necromancy. Black magic, dealings with the dead. The evil sorcerer performed feats of necromancy, calling on the spirits of the dead to tell the future. Nefarious. Very wicked. The villain's crimes, though various, were one and all nefarious. Negate. Cancel out, nullify, deny. A sudden surge of adrenaline can negate the effects of fatigue. There's nothing like a good shock to wake you up. Negligence. Neglect, failure to take reasonable care. Tommy failed to put back the cover on the well after he fetched his pail of water. Because of his negligence, Kitty fell in. Negligible. So small, trifling, or unimportant that it may be easily disregarded. Because the damage to his car had been negligible, Michael decided he wouldn't bother to report the matter to his insurance company. Nemesis. Someone seeking revenge. Abandoned at sea in a small boat, the vengeful Captain Bligh vowed to be the nemesis of Fletcher Christian and his fellow mutineers. Neologism. New or newly coined word or phrase. As we invent new techniques and professions, we must also invent neologisms such as microcomputer and astronaut to describe them. Neophyte. Recent convert, beginner. This mountain slope contains slides that will challenge experts as well as neophytes. Nepotism. Favoritism, to a relative. John left his position with the company because he felt that advancement was based on nepotism rather than ability. Nettle. Annoy, vex. Do not let him nettle you with his sarcastic remarks. Neutral. Impartial, not supporting one side over another. Reluctant to get mixed up in someone else's quarrel, Bobby tried to remain neutral, but eventually he had to take sides. Nicety. Precision, minute distinction. I cannot distinguish between such niceties of reasoning. Nihilist. One who believes traditional beliefs to be groundless and existence meaningless, absolute skeptic, revolutionary terrorist. In his final days, Hitler revealed himself a power-mad nihilist, ready to annihilate all of Western Europe, even to destroy Germany itself, in order that his will might prevail. The root of the word nihilist is nihil, Latin for nothing. Nip. Stop something's growth or development, snip off, bite, make numb with cold. The twins were plotting mischief, but mother intervened and nipped that plan in the bud. The gardener nipped off a lovely rose and gave it to me. Last week a guard dog nipped the postman in the leg. This week the extreme chill nipped his fingers till he could barely hold the mail. Nirvana. In Buddhist teachings, the ideal state in which the individual loses himself in the attainment of an impersonal beatitude. Despite his desire to achieve nirvana, the young Buddhist found that even the buzzing of a fly could distract him from his meditation. Nocturnal. Done at night. Mr. Jones obtained a watchdog to prevent the nocturnal raids on his chicken coops. Noisome. Foul-smelling, unwholesome. The noisome atmosphere downwind of the oil refinery not only stank, it damaged the lungs of everyone living in the area. Nomadic. Wandering. Several nomadic tribes of Indians would hunt in this area each year. Nomenclature. Terminology, system of names. Sharon found Latin word parts useful in translating medical nomenclature. When her son had to have a bilateral laryngotomy, she figured out that he just needed a hole in each of his eardrums to end the earaches he had. Nominal. In name only, trifling. He offered to drive her to the airport for only a nominal fee. Nonchalance. Indifference, lack of concern, composure. Cool, calm, and collected under fire, James Bond shows remarkable nonchalance in the face of danger. Noncommittal. Neutral, unpledged, undecided. We were annoyed by his noncommittal reply, for we had been led to expect definite assurances of his approval. Nondescript. Undistinctive, ordinary. The private detective was a short, nondescript fellow with no outstanding features, the sort of person one would never notice in a crowd. Nonentity. Person of no importance, non-existence. Because the two older princes dismiss their youngest brother as a nonentity, they do not realize that he was quietly plotting to seize the throne. Nonplus. Bring to halt by confusion, perplex. Jack's uncharacteristic rudeness nonplussed Jill, leaving her uncertain how to react. Nostalgia. Homesickness, longing for the past. My grandfather seldom spoke of life in the old country, he had little patience with nostalgia. Notable. Conspicuous, important, distinguished. Normally notable for his calm in the kitchen, today the head cook was shaking, for the notable chef Julia Child was coming to dinner. Notoriety. Disrepute, ill fame. To the starlet, any publicity was good publicity. If she couldn't have a good reputation, she'd settle for notoriety. Novelty. Something new, newness. The computer is no longer a novelty at work, every desk in our office has one. Novice. Beginner. Even a novice at working with computers can install Barron's computer study program for the SAT by following the easy steps outlined in the user's manual. Noxious. Harmful. We must trace the source of these noxious gases before they asphyxiate us. Nuance. Shade of difference in meaning or color, subtle distinction. Jody gazed at the Monet landscape for an hour, appreciating every subtle nuance of color in the painting. Nullify. To make invalid. Once the contract was nullified, it no longer had any legal force. Numismatist. Person who collects coins. The numismatist had a splendid collection of antique coins. Nuptial. Related to marriage. Reluctant to be married in a traditional setting, they decided to hold their nuptial ceremony at the Carousel in Golden Gate Park. Nurture. Nourish, educate, foster. The Head Start program attempts to nurture pre-kindergarten children so that they will do well when they enter public school. Nutrient. Nourishing substance. As a budding nutritionist, Kim has learned to design diets that contain foods rich in important basic nutrients. Oaf. Stupid, awkward person. Watch what you're doing, you clumsy oaf. Bill shouted at the waiter who had drenched him with iced coffee. Obdurate. Stubborn. He was obdurate in his refusal to listen to our complaints. Obese. Fat. It is advisable that obese people try to lose weight. Obfuscate. Confuse, muddle, cause confusion, make needlessly complex. Was the president's spokesman trying to clarify the Whitewater mystery, or was he trying to obfuscate the issue so the voters would never figure out what went on? Obituary. Death notice. I first learned of her death when I read the obituary column in the newspaper. Objective. Not influenced by emotions, fair. Even though he was her son, she tried to be objective about his behavior. Objective. Goal, aim. A degree in medicine was her ultimate objective. Obligatory. Binding, required. It is obligatory that books borrowed from the library be returned within 2 weeks. Oblique. Indirect, slanting, deviating from the perpendicular or from a straight line. Casting a quick, oblique glance at the reviewing stand, the sergeant ordered the company to march oblique right. Obliterate. Destroy completely. The tidal wave obliterated several island villages. Oblivion. Obscurity, forgetfulness. After a decade of popularity, Hurston's works had fallen into oblivion, no one bothered to read them anymore. Oblivious. Inattentive or unmindful, wholly absorbed. Deep in her book, Nancy was oblivious to the noisy squabbles of her brother and his friends. Obnoxious. Offensive. I find your behavior obnoxious, please mend your ways. Obscure. Dark, vague, unclear. Even after I read the poem a 4th time, its meaning was still obscure. Obscure. Darken, make unclear. At times he seemed purposely to obscure his meaning, preferring mystery to clarity. Obsequious. Slavishly attentive, servile, sycophantic. Helen liked to be served by people who behaved as if they respected themselves. Nothing irritated her more than an excessively obsequious waiter or a fawning sales clerk. Obsessive. Related to thinking about something constantly, preoccupying. Ballet, which had been a hobby, began to dominate his life, his love of dancing became obsessive.